little known facts that come out of your book include that Zatari generates approximately $13 million US a month from 3,000 businesses. The entrepreneurship rate in Zatari is 12.5%. 1 in 10 residents is some form of entrepreneur. And those statistics really struck me as a former business reporter, full disclosure. So I'm just wondering, you alluded to that just now, the unusually strong link between being a refugee and becoming an entrepreneur. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So what's interesting is refugees have, like, as you can imagine, by far the biggest barriers to entrepreneurship, but yet they have higher rates. And so it's kind of it's doubly interesting, I guess, because it's not just that they're more entrepreneurial, it's that they're more entrepreneurial despite having the biggest obstacles. And so, yeah. So even starting there, so access to capital. And one other thing I'll say is, like, I spent the last couple of years at Stanford, and the people who are, we just celebrate. Like, we write books about all these entrepreneurs who raised millions of dollars. And really, I think Esma, should be the one who's celebrated. She's the one who should have the film about her that's interesting. I guess she does have a film, so not a good example. But it's not going to be like the WeWork guy or whatever. So I guess my point there is they do a lot more with a lot less. And so access to capital is one, lack of networks. So if you think about the camp, you have people who, basically Yasmina had to jump in her truck and put her stuff in trash bags and then arrive. So almost no capital and nobody that she knew when she got there. Similar to refugees coming to the US and Canada, usually very few people they know. So lack of network, lack of access to capital, and then access to capital. So there's a lot in the US, especially that I've looked at, probably around the world, in terms of banking inequality. And so getting loans, access to loans is very difficult. You don't have a credit rating yet. You don't have a lot of other things. Language, and then particularly with refugee, I shouldn't just breeze by language. Language is a massive one, as any immigrant would know. And then the other one too is just trauma, that, having dealt with all of this, it doesn't just go away, having seen family members pass away, or having seen your in Esma's case, her house was burned down. So there's all of that, and yet they're 1.5 to 2x more entrepreneurial. And part of that is, one, they have a higher level of commitment. And so there's no, again, a lot of the people, this is Melik's art. A lot of the people who are celebrated have backup options. Like, I'm an entrepreneur and I know I have backup options. And so the level of commitment isn't necessarily not going to be as high as somebody like Yasmina, who sold all of her wedding jewelry when she arrived at the camp and didn't have anything else, basically. So she has to make this wedding shop and salon work at the camp, or else her kids are not going to have very much to live on. So there's a level of commitment. There's an ability to take risks. There's a cross-cultural advantage. And so on the cross-cultural point, someone we got an interview for and related to the book was named Razan. And she has a cheese lady. Yeah, she's a cheese lady. Yeah, so she started Yorkshire Dama cheese in England. And so she came from Syria as well. And so hers is a beautiful example of the cross-cultural advantage, because they have an understanding of cultures and markets and tastes and products that other people don't. And so the way she puts it is, she combined British milk, and she saw this kind of quality in British milk that made it good for creating halloumi cheese. And so not many, I think native-born British citizens might have thought of that, but she combined the British milk with kind of the halloumi cheese that she grew up with, and created this really, really good brand that's won a lot of awards, and importantly, hired a lot of people, right? Native-born British folks and immigrants alike. Cross-cultural advantage, yeah, those are the main ones. And then the risk-taking is also key. And then the other one I'd say is empathy. So one thing that Esma, the reason that she cares so much is partly because she dealt with something similar. And one thing, even in my work with DreamxAmerica, we provide loans for zero interest loans for immigrant and refugee entrepreneurs in first gen, and now it's expanded. But every time we get an application, it's the same. It says, I want to help and create a community in my new home. And so there is a bit of a level of, they're not taking for granted. I mean, you can't talk about any group in a monolith, but in general, every time I meet a refugee or immigrant that's doing this kind of work, and in general, and even more broadly, almost any immigrant or refugee, if they don't have a home and they're coming to a new place, they're often very desirous of meeting people and creating a community. And I think that creates a level of empathy for their customers that is pretty helpful for business.